And maybe a fundamental principle that I go back to is, even if you look in the field of finance, there's a lot talked about, where historical data and performance is not a great predictor of future performance, right? That's a very common kind of thing you hear in finance. Like, the stock goes up, in prior years, it doesn't mean it's going to go up in the future years. So I view that as a good analogy here, because just because the data set actually said something historically about the state of society and what was happening is not a great predictor, especially if you're trying to implement change in society for the better, to say use that data set the same way for the future. And I think in many ways that is the fundamental part of the issue, which is that you can't just take data, just blindly apply it for the future and hope it works. Now, the power of actually using these large data sets that are, there's obviously massive sets now being developed, is phenomenal, because it gives us a huge leg up to be able to sort of operate at scale. But there's a ton that needs to happen to make sure that is relevant and contextually correct. And there need to be sort of, checks and balances along the way. And from companies to make sure, like Andre said, there's a lot of training data that you need to continuously sort of make sure the quality of the data is accurate. Performing regular audits of this data, making sure there are humans in the loop there to make sure that there's augmentation, not only looking at the data, but also maybe even in building the product that they're building. So incorporating diversity in the design process, as an example, right? So that people who are actually, who have got the context are able to interpret what they're building, so that they're sort of reading out things that are in fact biased in any way. So those are sort of some examples where we can manage it. There's definitely, it has to be a very large scale effort, in my opinion. Government policy related, there's probably a little bit of room for regulation on this topic, as well as companies doing their part to make sure they just sort of blindly just apply these data sets.